I always thought there wasn't really much to dog agility. Some people aren't going to be very happy with that, but that was how I perceived it. And yeah, we couldn't get anything. We were just eliminated every single run, and it was due to how bad we were. This cannot be that hard. And I remember coming in one day and just saying to Amy, I was like, I can't do it. I was like, I cannot do it. This isn't working. There is a way to get better. It does take work, but if you're willing to put the work in, you will see progress. Yeah, training the dog in front of you is a big thing. It's far better, I think, for your dog to follow a method rather than to flick around between 10 different ones. Yeah, that is, if anyone can take anything away, it's like you said, just get started, whatever it is.
Hi, and welcome to the Champion's Journey. My name is Christoffer Endresen. Today, I am visiting by Olaf, a dog that we're taking care of for the next couple of days. But the guest on this week's podcast is Chris Kerton, also known as Kert. And I just completed a workout, and that I thought that this would be the perfect time to introduce Kert in this setting, because one of the things that Kert focuses on, which I totally agree with, is that you need to focus on the handler. That you as a handler need not only to focus on your dog, developing your dog, but also developing yourself and your own fitness, your own agility. And if you can do that, you will see more results, better results in the field. And Chris has a very interesting story. He started with agility because his wife was pregnant, and then he got into it. He thought it was easy. It wasn't. And then he got hooked. And that's the cool thing, because if things were easy, it wouldn't be as fun. Seeking challenge is a part of the game. And if you can learn to fall in love with that part of the process, that is when you can go further and grow as both a handler and a human being. I've worked with Chris, or I call him Chris, but I should call him Kert. I worked with Kert created some online courses regarding mental training. He owns and runs Karma Fitness. A lot of people know him from there. He's been at the GB, so Great Britain team, both as a coach and as a handler. And the time that I really got my eyes on Kert was during AWC, when he fell and just got up like this. And I remember watching it on live from the hotel room, and I could just hear Neil say, well, that's a perfect commercial for his fitness course and so on. And I thought that was just the best way that he could advertise the things that he does. But this is about his story. I hope you enjoy. And then if you haven't subscribed yet to this podcast, please do. You can do that on any app that you prefer, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, etc. Or go to dogagility.com to listen to the podcast there. So that's it. I will leave it over to me and Kert. Enjoy. Hi, Kert. Welcome to the Champion's Journey.
Hello. Hi, how are you doing? Thanks for having me on, Chris. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I really appreciate you taking the time to join in. And so, yeah, this podcast is really about going back in time to talk about the journey you had. You've been at the AWC. You've been coaching at the Great Britain team in agility for a couple of years. But I really wanted to go back in time before you started with agility. Like, how was your life before that?
I didn't ever picture myself being in agility, honestly. It was something that my wife used to do. I was always involved in other sports and activities, not always just hobbies and things on the weekends that we used to do after my main sporting career, if you want to call it that, finished. And yeah, it was something I don't want to say fell into, but really that's kind of what it was.
How did you fall into it?
Well, my wife fell pregnant with our child, and that was really it. It was, we had a son coming, and it was really either I stay at home with him or I went to the shows with my wife. and I like to be outside doing things, honestly, rather than to be stuck in the house. So I just used to go to the shows, and then gradually I think because of my competitive side, I guess I just wanted to get involved. Um, and yeah, just went from there, really.
Yeah. And how was it? Did you like take over her dog and start to run with that, and then gradually went over to getting your own dog, or how was that?
Yeah, so the dogs that my wife was running at the time were, as a family, our first dogs and our first dogs in agility as well. So I'm saying that because I'm sure some people can relate. They weren't trained how we would now have trained them, obviously, because at the time you don't know as much, do you? And every dog you learn more and more. But I would say they had in comparative times, it was a lot different. And I took over, so my wife was running two dogs. Um, I took over one of them. And the one that I took over was called Figaro. And he was the harder one, as in he was very stubborn and great dog, very naturally driven. But yeah, really tough to teach because he didn't really care, if that makes sense. And again, I'm sure a lot of it goes back to foundations and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I took that dog on, and we were not very good, to say the least. We were pretty bad. I know we've spoken about it before, but probably that was one of the reasons that I actually really got invested in the sport, is because from my side of things, looking in as someone who did always participate in other sports at a decent enough level, I always thought there wasn't really much to dog agility. Um, some people aren't going to be very happy with that, but that was how I perceived it. And then once I took the dog on, and we had nothing but ease for the first season. Well, I had about 3/4 of a season with him, and yeah, we couldn't get anything. We were just eliminated every single run, and it was due to how bad we were, and due to my stubbornness, I suppose, that I thought, I cannot, this cannot be that hard. So that kind of got me interested in the whole process and just trying to learn how to do it, I suppose, and fell in love with it from that.
Yeah, the funny thing with agility is that if you see someone that's really good at it, it looks so easy. It looks really, really
Yeah,
easy.
I think that was my problem. Yeah, I think my wife had shown me Crufts, and obviously I had no idea really what it was, and to me it looked like what it does to any member of the general public. It just looks like someone's pointing and the dog is going over the jumps. And I think in my mind at that time I was like, well, I can do that. And then quickly I found out that I couldn't. So yeah.
But you have a background from different sports. So what type of sports did you do before agility?
Oh, I was fortunate to be with, well, I was fortunate to have, sorry, parents who were very supportive of whatever it was that I wanted to do. And they always encouraged me to be active and to try different sports. So I, if you name a sport, I've probably had a good go at it. But the ones that I was um, more competitive at then, and maybe took to like a higher level than just being a hobby. I played football at a decent level. I'm not talking Premiership or nothing like that, but a bit higher standard than just playing on a Saturday. But then the sports that I really put a lot of effort into then were triathlon and duathlon and surf lifesaving. So quite heavy on the endurance side of things. And yeah, that was where I spent a lot of time, especially from about 14 to 20, maybe.
And how are those sports like different from agility? What is like, let's say that there's someone for me, for instance, like I have a background from cycling, which is also an endurance sport. And if I want to step into agility, like what would be my challenges based on your experience?
That's a good question. I always think that someone who has been in a sport that has a heavy amount of coaching is easier to coach, being coachable is a thing. And I often find that if you have been in like, so I'll use my example because I feel okay talking about myself rather than someone else. A sport like swimming is so heavily involved in technique that to get good at swimming, you have to be coachable to the minutia. You have to be able to understand the difference between catching 9 inches in front of your face compared to 12. And it's that fine motor balance on a general motor skill, like the small details that make the bigger picture. And I find that if someone has that experience of being in a sport similar to that, I find it way easier to coach them then on things like front crosses, for example, or things like controlling the dog's line and making sure you're making connection on the line you want the dog on. These are things that is almost far more second nature to someone who's been coached before. If I tell them, turn your body to face your dog and run on the line that you want your dog to run, that's not really a big problem because it's fairly basic coaching. But to someone who's never been coached, that's like 6 or 7 different things in one sentence. And they perhaps haven't got that ability to put the words into a physical activity or physical action, maybe it's the best way of explaining it. And the other thing that I think is really useful that really gets talked about is in sports like cycling, I'm sure you'll attest to, it's very much a case of you get out of it what you put in. There's no hiding place. So if you're willing to put the work in and you've got a good enough coach, you'll see the results that you will earn, essentially. And I feel it's similar in dog agility. There is a way to get better. It does take work, but if you're willing to put the work in, you will see progress. And again, I know that you'll know this, is that if you want something enough, there's no excuses, right? You just do the work. And I find that oftentimes people's expectations of what they want to be doesn't match the effort they're willing to put in. And that's often the gap that they're trying to find. They'll find an excuse, whereas someone who wants to do something enough, no excuse is enough. And that transfer is really big as well, I think.
Yeah, and I think that one of the things that I talk about when you set a goal, like let's say you're dreaming and creating this magnificent vision of what you want to accomplish in agility. Before you set that as a goal, you need to ask yourself, uh, what does it take? And am I willing to pay the price to achieve that? And if your answer is no, I'm not, I'm not willing, I'm not able, then you should readjust your goals to hit something that you're actually that you're able and willing to put in the effort to accomplish. But that comes with experience, I guess, because it does. When you do agility, I don't think everyone should set a goal at going to the AWC. That's not necessarily.
It's not necessarily what everyone wants either, right? Yeah.
Just because everyone kind of wants it doesn't mean that you should want it either. But for you, when you started out, what were your goals when you started with agility? Back when your wife was pregnant and you were running with your first dog.
I'm fairly realistic. And I could see straight away that I wasn't going to be running at the AWCs with my first dog, even though it was my first dog. I can't get anything but an elimination. So to get him to the point where I was at the AWCs, I knew was really beyond my scope, honestly. It didn't really matter how much help I had. And that's one thing that I'm not afraid to do either, is ask for help. At the time, when I took over my first dog, I was no one, in the sense that I was just some other person. But I was asking all the top at the time, all the top handlers. I was like, what do I need to do to get better? I was committed to doing it, but I was at that point that I just had no idea what I was doing. So yeah, I'm not afraid to ask for help, and that made a big difference as well, actually, now that we're talking about that. Because of how bad we were initially, and because I was fairly realistic, I set a goal to get to grade 7, which in the UK is the the highest grade that you can get to. Again, I really didn't understand dog agility that much, so I didn't know that many people in grade 7, so I thought that was um, like a really good achievement if I could make grade 7. Then obviously you get a little bit more experienced, and then you realize that, you know, there are a lot of people in grade 7. But for me at that time, that was definitely my initial goal. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think it's a great goal because that's like the first mountain to climb.
Yeah, for sure. And I thought if I could get him there, then I was already thinking, you know, next dog, you can start. And I genuinely, I really loved the sport because I've always loved our dogs, even though I didn't always take part in it. But once I started competing in it, I just really enjoyed, again, the process that if you work, I would see improvements. And I like that. That keeps me going. Um, and yeah, I was kind of already thinking, I'm going to learn how to do this and learn dog training, because I was fairly convinced the handling side of things I would be able to get my head around. So I was just enjoying it after I could start to see progress, and I was enjoying see where we can go next, and then we get there, then we make another small goal, see if we can get there, make another small goal. And I was just really enjoying learning dog training more than anything, really. Trying to understand um it, not just copy someone, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And I can only imagine that first dog, all the challenges you had to go through, all the it was a stubborn dog, you said, so it probably wasn't that cooperative all the time. So, would you like talk about some of the challenges that you had to overcome in order to get to grade 7?
Yeah, so the biggest one for my dog, he was a great dog, by the way, in the sense that I would love to have him again now. Physically not that talented, but he was really intelligent, and he had such a good drive. But again, just didn't really know how to harness it. And the biggest problem was he didn't have any understanding of what was required of him. And again, this is no one's fault. It's your first dog. My wife had taught really good contacts. So his weaves and all of his contacts were really, for a first dog, they were really good. But he learned after going to, so my wife did obedience with him, and she did the Gold Citizens Award or something like this, just to kind of help their relationship, because he was going to run for her. And then after that, the obedience club said, would you like to start trying agility? And she was like, yeah, okay, let's try it. And there was no foundations of understanding. There's no groundwork and handling and relationship and drive and arousal. He was stuck on 650 jumps and told to just run. And he would just run. He would take poles, he would smash wings, and at the end he would get rewarded. So he just had no idea that he shouldn't be doing that. And essentially that's how we kind of kept getting eliminated. He would just run, do what he wanted, and it was taking poles, taking wings. So the biggest challenge that I had was to help him understand that you can't take poles. But that is also a big challenge because he was self-rewarding on the jumps. He loved agility, which is why one of the reasons he was at the time quite fast. So I decided that after my first season of nothing but eliminations, I was going to shape him to not take poles. And the way that I did it, I was using the jumping as the reward. Obviously, I give him a reward as well. But the issue was, if he took a pole and I stopped him doing agility, he was clever enough to understand that I was just going to start doing agility again. So he really didn't care that much. So my training plan consisted of, I'd put one single jump out in my garden, and I would warm him up for 5 minutes, and then we would go to the jump, and I'd ask for a jump, and I would keep doing jump skills on the single jump until he touched the pole or took the pole. And at that point, the session finished. So I was trying to kind of teach him in the, you know, in the best kind of way I could think, that if you touch the pole, the fun stops. I know it's it might not be conventional, but at the time, again, I was making my own way, if you want, and I didn't really know any other way of doing it. And it was so frustrating because every single day I'd warm him up for 5 minutes, I'd take him out, I'd put him over the first jump, he'd hit the pole, and the session would finish. And I'm not exaggerating, that must have happened 40, 50 times in a row. First time, you just take the pole. And I remember coming in one day and just saying to Amy, I was like, I can't do it. I was like, I cannot do it. This isn't working. And she was like, it will work. You've just got to stick it out. And I was just like, oh, I don't know. But as I said to you, I am quite stubborn. And I stuck with it. And I remember it was like one day I got him over the first jump. And I was thinking, oh, reward. And then we got him over 2. And then like eventually it was kind of about after about 2 months, something seemed to click. And he was like making an effort not to hit the pole or the wing or anything anymore. And like you're never going to get perfection, but you just want understanding, don't you? Well, that's what I wanted. He clearly didn't understand that I didn't want him to touch the pole. So I just wanted that understanding. And if he's trying to not hit it, then that's all I can ask, right? And I remember there was a turning point. It was about after 2 months, and he eventually started making an effort, carried on doing it for about another month until I thought, no, he's definitely got this. And then went back into normal training, and it was from that point that we were actually able to make some progress. But for 2 months, I thought this is just never going to work. But it was my stubbornness, honestly, that managed to get me through. And even then, I wasn't sure. I was thinking, this might not work. This might not work.
But I think it's a really good story because I think there are many people out there listening to this podcast that may be in that situation where
Yeah,
they
maybe in a
have,
different scenario, but the same situation, right?
yeah, maybe they've had a year with eliminations, right? And they have to go back to do some foundation work in order to build a reshape of behavior and conditioning, and put in the effort and just stay with it and get sort of despite the frustrations, because I think that's a thing that people don't talk about. I'm not an agility trainer myself, but my alias is my partner, and I can sometimes see the frustration, right? Because I'm like, Amy, I am the one that needs to talk it out with the
Yeah,
person.
well, I think a big issue that I had at the time was because, and again, this is no judgment to anyone, but we are talking 10 years or so ago now. And at the time, the different methods that people were telling me to use um, either wouldn't work or I didn't feel comfortable doing it. I had people say, lift the bar as he's jumping it to like make him lift his feet more. I didn't really feel super comfortable doing that. I don't think it would have bothered him, honestly, because of the type of dog he was, but I just thought there must be a better way because I didn't feel like that would teach him anything. And it just, I guess, wasn't an issue that other people were having. So one of the reasons that I wasn't sure is because it wasn't someone with more experience telling me to do it the way I did. I was kind of just I just kind of went with my gut and just thought, this is the best way I can think I can do it. If I had a grade 7 handler telling me, no, this will work, I'd have been like, oh yeah, okay, well, I just keep going then, right? But yeah, that was one of the definite drawbacks. But going to what you said about other people, there's so much good training freely available now, or readily available, I shouldn't say freely available, that I think if you're willing to do the work, you'll find good methodologies for most issues, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. But it's also important, like we talked about before, that you have to do it. It's like you have to, despite the disappointments and the frustration, go out, do that 5-minute warm up, and then do that exercise that you've been recommended, and persist in it. Of course, you can reevaluate if it's the right strategy to use, but some form of discipline is crucial in order to get the outcome that you want.
Yep, I agree. And I often laugh because so many people attribute things like this to like luck or some genetics or, in different scenarios. But there's a reason that you see a lot of the same handlers at the very top, regardless of the dog they've got. It's because, yes, they're good dog trainers, but they're committed to being the best, and they do the things that are necessary to be the best. And it's not something that'll fall on their laps. It takes work. As people know who do dog agility, a dog just doesn't come out and is amazing. You have to do the work.
Yeah, it's not like there's a program downloaded into the brains of a puppy of a world champion dog or anything like that. It's yeah, you have to do the work. And like if we go to the present, how many dogs do you have now?
We've got 6.
6 dogs.
Yes.
Like, so back in that day, how many dogs did you have then? 2?
2, yeah. So it was, like I said, it was when we first started, and they were dogs that we had as family pets. And my wife went on to do a degree in canine behavior, and they were kind of encouraged to do dog sports as part of the degree. So she went to obedience, and then she just found agility. So she took them both into agility.
Really, really cool. And today, how many of those 6 dogs do you compete with? Both you and Amy.
They're all, one is just at about retirement age. She is 9.5, and she can jump at a different height at WAO. She can jump lower than she can in KC. So she's running really good. Physically, she's really good. But we think this will probably be her last season, because ideally you want to retire them before they're forced to retire. And I think that's kind of the sentiment that we're going with. Everything's fine, and there's no need to retire her, but I think this year will be her last year.
Yeah, it's smart, but it's also a difficult decision to make, is to retire a dog, because they love it, and you don't want to take it necessarily away from it. You can reduce it, but not push it too much.
Yeah, I
That's for
think
sure.
that even if we did retire her, we would still train her, but at a low height, because obviously for them, it's the same, isn't it? But yeah, I agree. We've had 2 dogs. So the 2 dogs that we originally had, Figaro and Luna, they've both sadly passed. But when they did retire from agility, we still used to do agility with them, but just jumps and tunnels, and at like small height, not even small, like lower than small, just so that they could still do things. And I remember that the time that we completely stopped, I feel like physically they've dramatically declined at that point. So I think trying to keep them active mentally as well as physically is definitely beneficial if you can.
Definitely. So you had your first dogs. You learned a lot based on the frustration, the challenges. You took those experiences and you got a new dog. And like, when did your mindset change in terms of, okay, I'm not going to get a dog up to grade 7. I'm going to go beyond that. I'm going to aim for bigger events. When did that happen?
So to be completely honest, when I was getting the next dog, I had ideas of trying to, potentially get to that standard. I thought I had a great trainer, someone who was very successful, and I had help from people who were very good as well. So I was thinking, you know what, the dog training side of things is kind of, that box is ticked. And again, I have no worries about me doing the work. I knew I would do the work. So I was thinking, well, I've got the training. I know I'll do the work. I know physically at this point now, it was like 3 years later, I was a better handler. Obviously still always stuff to learn, right? But I was physically capable. So when I was getting him, I was thinking, yeah, I'd like to think we can get to a good standard here. But then when I did get him, there were definitely challenges. And I immediately had to kind of, I would say, reassess what was going to be. I don't want to say reassess, but I had to, yeah, I would say, maybe reassess. I had to reassess what I thought I could do, especially in the short term, and maybe not look so far. because he was very sensitive and training was a real issue, because he had problems failing. And again, I spoke to multiple, because again, I'm not afraid to ask for help. So I reached out to people who were not just dog agility trainers, but just dog trainers in general, and speaking about sensitivities and this kind of stuff. So we did lots of conditioning work, and earn to learn, and it's your choice. All these type of games to try to explain to him that even if it goes wrong, it's fine. You just get another go. Like, I feel like I did the right things, and yeah, gradually, I think, with the help of the person who I was visiting, training regularly at the time, and with the help and the advice of other people, I did then start to think, oh, do you know what? Maybe we will get there, because there was no doubt to me about my dog's physical abilities or his brain. He was very capable, both. It was just the training that was quite difficult. But then we've just found a way to manage his training sessions and plan them in a way that worked, I guess. But it definitely wasn't straightforward.
No, and you had to adapt your coaching methods and knowledge, and with a new dog comes a new set of experiences.
Yeah, and that was something that I had to learn. I thought, right, I know exactly what I'm going to do. I've got my roadmap. I've got all the training in a massive list. I know exactly what I'm going to do. And then he got here, and I was like, right, that's not going to work. I've got to do something different. So yeah, it wasn't so sure. It wasn't a sure thing. That's for certain. But yeah, again, I was really lucky. I had a lot of help. I used to train at the time when I had Cop with Charlotte Hardin, and I think she had one of the most successful dogs in Britain. Great dog trainer, and I was getting help off, honestly, a lot of people. Dave Munnins, Bonnie Quick. They were all very helpful to me at the time. Good friends with all of them as well, I'd like to think, now and then, certainly. But I was lucky, there's no doubt about that. I was fortunate with the people who were willing to help, and my wife, of course.
Yeah, and I think that's an important principle as well, is that if you want to be good at something, you have to find the best and then learn from them. And that could be the best in your community, it could be the best online or whatever it might be. But reaching out and asking for help, as you say, is so vital for growth.
Yeah, 100%. And it wasn't that I was asking for help for free. I wasn't like asking for free help. I was willing to pay, but just as you said there, I was thinking to myself, who do I want to run and compete like? So ask them. That was my mindset. It was, yeah, you could spin your wheels for 6 months and get nowhere if you think that you know everything, but clearly I knew I didn't. So I was more than happy to pay for people who I thought might, and people who I ultimately wanted to be competing against.
Yeah, a mentor is a great thing, and it's a great principle that could be um, applied to basically anything. Um, and I think that that is something that people, and especially today, like, yeah, I'm sitting in Norway, you're sitting in Wales. Like, if we go back 15 years, that was almost impossible to do, or 20 years. Um, so it's just amazing how we can sort of reach out to the world and find really good coaches and people and athletes and handlers. Um, that's for sure. And so the dog that you went to AWC with, what was the name of that dog?
So we call him Snickers, but his real name is Copernicus. Like the Polish, yeah, the Polish astronomer. Basically, I give my dogs names that they're not ever going to hear apart from in agility, and it's kind of their call to come to me. So they've all got kind of strange names, and yeah, we call him Snickers, but his agility name is Copernicus.
Very good. And how was training him, and how do you sort of see that this is could actually be a dog that I could go to the national team with?
It's like I say, I would say the first 12 months, really, we were kind of, I don't want to say experimenting, but trying to work out what worked for him. It was fairly obvious that it wasn't going to be a straight A to B journey. We had to kind of, just really heavily manage the way that I taught things, and everything was back-chained, which I don't think is a bad way to do it anyway, but some dogs do quite good off shaping, for example. It didn't, and I understand from a training point of view as well, that a well-shaped behavior is a stronger behavior, but it did not work for us. So we went with the idea that we need to kind of structure every training session so that we minimize any correction. And I say correction, and don't get me wrong, I'm not correcting him. I'm not I'm not even saying no, because even that is enough for him to, like, if for example your shoulders drop, he would just walk off. He was that sensitive to it, in that he just really wanted to get it right for me, that I had to honestly minimize the chances of it going wrong, because even if I'm trying my best to stay happy and upbeat, and Dave Munnins always says to me, still says it to me now, I need to act more gay. That's literally what he says to me. He says, you're too straight. He says, you're too straight, and the dogs can sense it. Because any time that it would go wrong, he would just, he did not enjoy it, and it would be the end of the session. So, and I know some people will say, oh, because you never let him go wrong, that's why he didn't like going wrong. But trust me, we did all of the stuff that we needed to do from the shaping point of view, helping him with all that kind of stuff. And we just went with what seemed to work the best for him. And yeah, it was probably around 12 months, I feel like we started making some really good strides, start to understand what Cop needed more. And like I said, I really didn't have any doubts about him as a dog. Like, he's such a lovely dog. Like, we love him to bits. He's really clever. He's really powerful. So like, I knew that it was there. I just knew that we had to find a way to bring it out. And I was probably around 12 months. I thought, right, we're making some progress here now. And then he definitely started coming out of himself. The first year in agility, though, he wasn't running fast. He really needed that confidence, that assurance that he was going right. So yeah, definitely, if you saw his runs in his first year, you'd never be like, oh yeah, that dog will make the GB AWC team in large, because we weren't at that point. But at that point, I was definitely confident that we could get there, because to someone who's just seeing a snapshot, I get it. There's nowhere near where it needs to be. But I'd seen us 12 months prior and seen the progress we'd made to get to that point, and the progress we were still making. So I was still thinking, do you know what, we're going the right way. And that was kind of what kept me going, I think. Again, stubbornness, that belief that, if we do the right things, we will get there.
Yeah, and I think you're touching on a really important point here, because that really has to do with mindset and perspective, because you have a vision of where you want to take the dog, and you might or might not fully see the potential in the beginning, but there's something there. And then you see that the current results or current performance isn't as good as the vision, which creates this gap, and that for many can cause frustration or disappointment and so on. But what you're talking about here is that you're actually having a bigger perspective, that you see where you're looking at where you were, you're looking at the progress you've had, but still having a belief in the dog and the potential that the dog could have, despite the dog not running fast. And I think that's an important lesson for everyone who's listening, that you need to have all of that, really believing in your dog, but also tracking the progress.
Yeah, and again, I can't overemphasize it enough, because I do genuinely feel that some people gloss over it, but I had help, and the help I had, I was very fortunate to have it. Charlotte Hardin was fantastic. I learned a lot about dog training with her. I learned a lot from my wife. When she was doing her degree, we used to talk about it a lot. And Dave and Dan as well, they helped me like a lot. And I really try to always mention them, because I'm well aware that I would not have managed to do what I did without their help. All I had was work ethic. I had a little bit of knowledge of the dog training, but I had people who were willing to help me, and I won't forget. I won't forget that personally. It does mean a lot that they were willing to help.
Yeah, yeah, and it definitely does, and also in terms of from my point of view, I'm definitely not a dog training expert by far. And but in terms of it's when you're there as an athlete, I know this from my own experience that you're so focused in on the current results or performance, and you could get disappointed if it's not matching up to expectations. But having someone else that helps you to zoom out and see from a different perspective and reframe the situation is so vital. And it's just having a support team is crucial in order to overcome those challenges and obstacles.
Yeah, for sure. You know, as we were doing the training, it wasn't that we were like, oh no, Cop is definitely going to get on the GB team. It wasn't ever that, but it was always maybe let's just go for it. Keep going. We're seeing progress. We can't ask for more than we're seeing, and there was never any doubt about him as a dog. He always wanted to get it right. He always wanted to like please me in that sense. His issue was he wanted to please me too much. And it was like he would get so upset if it didn't go right. So I was like, yeah, this is a problem, but it's almost it wasn't a nice problem, I'm not gonna lie, but it was beneficial in the long run if we worked to harness it, if that makes sense.
And these experiences that you had with the different dogs, how have they shaped you as a dog trainer, as a coach, as an athlete?
Ooh. Um, well, with my first dog, Figaro, it was definitely patience. Um, yeah, like we kind of expect. I feel like at the point that I was at, then I kind of expected things to happen quicker. I didn't think it would take 2 months of doing the same thing until he understood the behavior. And again, maybe I was doing it in the wrong way. So, but that's definitely something I learned with Figaro. He was eventually we got to a decent point. He wouldn't take polls anymore, which is for me that was a massive win. Um, and then with Cop, it was a case of don't have expectations, but train the dog in front of you. And that was a big lesson because I had all of these plans. Like I said, I guess I'm in the sense I was really well thought out of. I had a grand plan, and then, like I said, I didn't account for the fact that not every dog is the same, and that sounds so stupid now because obviously I learned that very quickly, and yeah, training the dog in front of you is a big thing. Well, I would say those are two big things, and one other thing would be, and this is to everyone, I would say that what I see with people who are trying to learn is they go between lots of different coaches. And it's not that any of the coaches are bad, but there's so many different ways to teach things, and it can be so confusing for someone who is just starting of what is right and what is wrong and what are the bits to take and what is confusing the dog. And I think the best advice I could give someone is find someone who you want to run like, or who runs or trains in a similar way to what you would aim to be like, and just try and stay consistent with that. Don't need to go to 50 different trainers. You know, it's it's far better, I think, for your dog to follow a method rather than to flick around between 10 different ones.
Yeah, and the same principle could be applied to physical training as well, in terms that we know it both since we sort of have a degree in that, is that it's sometimes better to just stick to one program to see what the progress or outcome it gives, and then you can try something else and gain new experience to see what really works for you. Because it's like if you do a study, look at the study on a specific strength principle or training routine, like the difference in results is so big. Someone can actually have a loss in results. Someone can have a 20% gain. from the same method. It's just that you have to look at the individual, and even I think the same principle of the individual when it comes to dog is something that amazed me coming from a sports background. It's like, yes, you have an individual athlete and you have to adapt to that athlete. But you would think that in dog sport, it's like, that's a dog. Here's the template. Ta-da. Here's the behavior. But then it's like, that's an individual itself.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about this before as well, off the camera, and like, the most well-known principle in strength and conditioning, and the one that basically is what makes people progress, is progressive overload. And I would assume it can only be the same for dogs, in that if you're constantly flicking between things, you're never gonna have the chance to progress on a specific thing, because you're never doing it. It takes time, and it takes repetitive efforts at the same thing to give the body a chance to allow it to progress, allow it to adapt, and to allow it to get stronger, essentially. That's what progressive overload is, isn't it? It's doing the same thing repeatedly and adding a bit more difficulty each time, if you want to simplify it. And there's so many people who like understand that from a dog training point of view with regards to like repetitions and making things a bit difficult and all this kind of thing. But then it comes to the human fitness side of things, and they just don't follow through. Like, it's the easiest thing in the world to see for me, because I can just see I've trained, like yourself, I've trained a lot of people, and the ones who do the best are the ones who are willing to just keep going. Just keep going on the same plan, and, week by week, be happy with the small wins, the added 1 kilo to your bench press, or taking away 5 seconds on your 5 kilometer time, or, but people are so quick to want immediate results. They'll spend 4 weeks doing something and then get bored and think, oh, I don't want to do that anymore. I want to do this. And it's like, well, you wouldn't do that with your dog. You wouldn't do a method of running contact for 4 weeks, not have a finished dog walk, and then be like, oh, I'm using someone else's method. It just takes time. And there's a lot of people as well, and this is like, I find this quite hard to talk about, because it makes it sound like I'm saying it because I want these people to train with me, and it really isn't that. Like, the people who I see will probably never train with me, just because, for whatever reason, and like, that's absolutely fine. But the amount of people who skip the foundations in fitness, but again, would never do it with their dogs. So like, I see people now, and they're doing sprint training, and they're like trying to work on technique, and they haven't got the physical capabilities to even maintain a good position. So the body is forced to like almost compensate for this lack of strength, and then the mechanics become wrong anyway, and they're at more of a risk of an injury. And it's like, just, if you want to get better at sprinting, amazing, like really, really good, but do the foundations first. Improve your movement quality, get a little bit stronger, and then when you get to the sprinting, you're going to have a far higher potential anyway, far less likely to need to compensate, so you're less likely to get injuries. It's just, it's the one thing that drives me crazy. It's like, people are willing to take the time to train their dogs, but then they're not willing to take the time to train themselves. And it's, I don't understand it. We've talked about this before, haven't we? And I don't want to harp on about it too much, but it makes no sense to me at all.
Yeah, but I think it's an important topic because I also remember when I got into agility back in 2017, and I went to my first competition. Back then, I was more of a mental coach for a couple of athletes. They introduced me to the world of agility, and I went to this trial, and I was like, why aren't people warming up? That was like, because I was so used to it. You never go to any sports event without seeing people warming up, and people just taking their dogs out of the car. Or they got up from their chair, went to the car, got the dog out of the cage, went to the start line, and then ran the course. But I think that what is happening now as well is that there's becoming a more understanding that dog agility is a team sport. And that it's not just, of course, it's the dog that's being measured in skills and time, but you as the handler have to be at the right place at the right time, having the surplus to give the right commands.
Yeah. I mean, for sure. Like, and the thing that I always say to people is, you know, if you're the fastest man in the world, it doesn't mean that you're going to be good at agility, right? You don't have to be the fastest man in the world to be good at agility. You can be a fantastic trainer, you can have a fantastic relationship, but how beneficial would it be as well if you could run? You know, it's not a disadvantage. And that's what I try to say to people. It's like, yeah, you don't have to be. But I was like, it's a massive advantage if you can be. If you're physically there to show your dog what you want them to do, how much of an advantage is that compared to not being there? You've got a way more chance of it going right. And like, we're just talking literally in the direct agility example. You could take this to everyday life as well. Being fit helps in everyday life, not just agility. You're not just trying to get the advantages for agility. Obviously, that's great. That's what most people in this conversation will be thinking about. And I've got no problem with that. If you want to get fit for agility, fantastic. Use that as your reason to drive you to get fit. But I promise you, you're going to feel way more advantages in other things too. And that's just as good. You're going to be more confident about yourself. You're going to be more resilient. You're going to learn mental toughness. You're going to have more belief in yourself. And like, we can go into so many different areas where there is carryover other than just in agility. But use that if you want to, but I promise you it's worth it for other things as well.
Yeah, and I think it's so important for the listener to understand that we're not saying that you need long legs and a six pack in order to do well in agility, especially long legs, huh?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But the thing is, like, if you can improve your fitness, that will benefit you, and it will benefit the dog, and it will benefit the team. And I think that if agility is the trigger that takes you on that personal journey, really, really good. And then I think that going back to your first dog is like, yeah, that's where you start. You have no idea what you're doing. You're just doing something, and that's great because then you're shaping yourself, your own behavior. But then once you're sort of stuck at something, reach out and ask for help, because that's how I got into it. That's how you got into it. And you need people that have walked the walk before. They can help you, guide you in order to get to where you want to get.
Yeah, for sure. I totally agree with you. Like, and that's the one way that I always say it to people who are coming to me, and they will often say, for example, I need to do this for my young dog. They're really quick. And I'm like, awesome. If that's why you want to do it right now, awesome. But I promise you, once you start feeling the benefits outside of agility, you're going to understand that you need to be doing this for yourself. You do the things today, even if it doesn't feel good, for your future self when you need it. And that, like, you know, Karma Fitness is all aimed at people in agility, right? There's lots of running courses, there's all that kind of stuff. But I I would love to like try to explain to people that it's everyday life. That's what we're training for, is to be more equipped, to be healthier and to be more robust so that everyday life just feels easier. That's, to me, is the most important thing, because we do everyday life more than we do agility.
Yes. Yeah, and I think that one thing that we talked about before as well is like if we can use your first dog Figaro as actually a good metaphor, is that you just have to start, and it doesn't have to be 1 hour session to get you going from the couch and start to be physically active and improving yourself. It could be that you do a 5 minute warm up and then you do a couple of exercises, either some skipping, or you do some, you take actually a sandbag and you lift that or do some exercises with that. And that's it. You don't need a gym membership. Just start to shape your behavior. And once you have the habit of it, then you can start to improve the habit.
Yeah, and again, it's something that we've talked about, Chris, but social media giving unrealistic expectations of what fitness has to look like. Um, for people who know me, I am on social media, but I'm on social media for Karma Fitness. As a person, I don't like it because I feel too many people use it in a manipulative way. And each to their own. If they are happy doing that, that's fine. I cannot personally be comfortable with myself putting things on social media that I do not think is healthy. And there are so many things on social media that are, in my opinion, either not healthy or not realistic or damaging, because it gives people ideas that, like you just said, everyone has to have a six-pack. I mean, that's not even healthy most of the time. Most of the people who walk around with a six-pack are not happy. They're not, like, I am talking generally, but like, to walk around with a six-pack, you have to be at a low level of body fat. And some people are aiming for bodybuilding shows, and it's a necessity for that. But I can promise you, they would be a happier person if they could walk around at maybe 15, 16%, still be healthy, but have a piece of cake. Do you know what I mean? And it's just the things that make impact on social media are the extremes, unfortunately. No one wants to see the normal, or the, I don't even want to say average, because if you are someone who's working on your fitness, you're well above the average. But you see the societal outliers on social media. The algorithm pays into people who are not normal. And unfortunately, because of social media now, you are seeing all of these outliers as if that is normal, and as if there are loads of people like it, when ultimately there are very few people who are looking like this in the world. And then for you to aspire to look like that, for you to aspire to do these things, can become massively demoralizing, because it isn't achievable for the mass population, because these are outliers. But again, it's the social media that, number one, gives them the platform, and number two, makes it seem like this is normal. When, as you just said, Chris, for most people, just getting up, just moving a little bit, that's a perfect starting point. Like, the saying movement is medicine is real. You just need to start. And, there's that saying, tomorrow never comes, isn't it? Because always people say, oh, I'll start tomorrow. Well, tomorrow, it isn't tomorrow anymore, it's today. So you need to just start. There's no perfect time. You just get going. And yeah, when you get to a point then, when you think, I need some help, there's so many people who can help you. If you're talking about agility or fitness.
For sure. And the thing is, like, again, the expectations, social media has a huge influence on how people perceive the new normal, which was famously awarded during the COVID years. But the I think that when you look at movies and actors and Instagram and all these, like, this is their job. It's like they have a support team around them in order to get to that shape for a short period of time. And then they take a lot of photos, a lot of videos, and then they spread that content throughout the year. But they're only in that peak performance within a short period of the year, and they're suffering to get into that shape. And and like you said, it's yeah, and it's not beneficial for necessarily performance in agility either. But I think that, if, again, to the perspective part, if you're comparing yourself against others, you're missing out on a lot of good emotions and things that can drive you to get better. But if you can compare yourself to yourself or previous self, and sort of focus and measure the progress, that is when you're in the right perspective. You can get inspired by others, of course.
Yeah, for sure. And that's what we say, that the process, and then that's why you've got to focus on the process. It's like you say, is you could look at any facet of fitness. Let's talk about, you see people who are like super flexible, right? These people who can do insane feats of mobility, where it looks like they're not even a human. It looks like they're water or something, and they flow down in through their hips, and it's insane. But that's not normal. That is the outlier. And that's what serves to make people feel so bad about themselves often, because these people are the ones that are being seen. These people are the ones that are being, for want of a better word, adored. they get all of the likes, they get all of the clicks, which is another issue in itself, but let's not go down that road. It's like, it's no wonder that people have that paralysis to start doing anything, because the things that they're seeing as being normal seem so inconceivable and unachievable that it's like paralysis, isn't it? It's like, well, I can't do that. I'm just not going to bother. And that is the massive danger about social media. And you could look at any area, right? You could look at the elite strength lifters who are like powerlifting 500 kilos. And it's like, oh God, I'm never going to start. I can't even do 40. But the reality is doing 40 is great. Get in the gym, do 40, follow a program, you get 45, then 50. And then, it's focusing on the process, as you say. And yeah, that is, if anyone can take anything away, it's like you said, just get started, whatever it is.
Yeah. And then once you have a certain routine and you hopefully create a habit out of it, then you can look at improving that habit and getting better at it. And it's one of the things that we focus on together with Ellie is that we probably improve 1 or 2 things per year, not necessarily more than that. So it's sort of, if it's too much, then it can be overwhelming, and that doesn't necessarily help the performance, because there are certain things that you're doing good, reinforce that, and then look at things that you can improve, but not too many, and then you do that, and that after a period of time, that will add up.
That's the power of small goals, isn't it? Is constantly hitting those goals, getting that the good feeling of hitting the goals, and that makes you motivated again.
Yeah, definitely. So if you were to go back in time, and give yourself some advice when you started with agility, what would that advice be?
Oh, it's a good question. I, I I think it would be to have no expectations and to train the dog in front of you. Honestly, like that was the biggest lesson that I learned with Cop, and it's helped me with every dog since. I just remember how kind of almost like, well, confusing it was. I was like, well, this isn't how it's meant to go. It should just be, I need to do this, I need to do this. And yeah, it was quite shocking almost. But again, it just makes so much sense now, because obviously not every human is coached the same way. And not every dog can be. And yeah, I think with every dog that you get, obviously there's no problems having an idea of what you'd like to do, but you got to look at the dog in front of you. Like there's no point in putting hundreds of hours of control work in on a dog that is already fairly controlled. You need to kind of adapt the training for the dog that you see, not the dog that you want. Yeah, I think that's the biggest lesson that I learned. And I know, like I said, it was something that I learned fairly early on, but it has made a difference since.
Yeah, for sure. And let's say the people that have listened to this, and hopefully someone got inspired to start out with their own fitness journey in order to be a better handler for their dog, but also probably get better health. Where can they find you, and how could you help?
Oh, I mean, I always say that like I'm happy to give people advice first, because so my business is called Karma Fitness. We try. It's a community of people who are just really working on themselves. A lot of them with the idea to be better agility handlers, and many of the courses are centered around attributes that help that directly. But equally, there are many courses that are just general fitness, that are aimed at improving general physical preparedness. So how ready are you for life, essentially, right? And like there are very clear progressive pathways. So there are courses for people who've never done anything before. And then there's a follow-on course for that from maybe people who have a little experience, and all the way up to people who are ready to compete at international level. But honestly as well, I speak to people who want help, but maybe online training isn't for them. And that's okay. I really am happy to help people, even if it's not regarding coming to work with me. And the biggest advice I can give to people is you have to enjoy it. If you don't enjoy it, you're not likely to turn up eventually the motivation's going to go, and then you're not likely to turn up. And that's it. The best training plan in the world isn't going to work if you don't turn up. So best advice I could give someone is, if you are thinking about trying to do something, try it, see how it feels. If it doesn't feel good, if you don't look forward to doing it, in the sense of, there's going to be days that you don't feel like exercising, okay? That's normal. There's days you don't feel like going to work. There's days you don't feel like going to agility. You know, motivation is externally influenced. But if generally you're thinking, oh, I'm quite looking forward to doing this. A great example, I've got jujitsu tonight. I'm new to it. I'm getting beaten up all the time, but I really enjoy it. So that to me tells me it's a good thing for me to be doing, because I'm enjoying the experience, even though sometimes I might think, oh, I don't know if I can be bothered. Do you know what I mean? It's that kind of thing. I enjoy it enough to keep going back, and that is what is important. So I could say to you, look, if you want to be an agility handler, you need to do X, Y, and Z, and you need to follow this course. But if you don't enjoy doing X, Y, and Z, that is not the best course for you, because you're not going to do it. So you have to weigh that up. You have to find something that you enjoy, and hopefully that can be something that can align to agility and that can help you directly. But if it doesn't, then as long as you are doing something for your health, that's a good thing.
Yeah, I agree, and that's the advice that I got that got me started. I was when I was about 15 years old, I didn't enjoy sports. Any sports with a ball involved, I was horrible at. I had asthma, and I was afraid of running because if I got short of breath, it was almost feeling like I was drowning. And I talked to my doctor, and I said I wanted to get rid of the asthma. So what should I do? And then he said, find something that you enjoy and do that and be active. And that's how I got into cycling. And that changed the game for me. Then suddenly other activities start to become fun. You start to master those. And then you just start to enjoy doing what you once thought was very, very difficult. And that just gets the ball rolling.
Sure. And it gives you belief in yourself and what you're capable of, isn't it?
Oh yeah, for sure. It's like you're opening a new door to a new potential. And then I think that's also the great thing with agility, because I really think that's a door opener for a lot of people. They want to do it for their dog to strengthen their bond, and then they find it fun, and then they're suddenly running without thinking, and then they want to get better at it. And I think that's great because, and then you can add on things that will make you better at it and enjoy it even more. And that's how the journey goes, basically. So, what's your next journey, Kurt?
Well, as I said, I've just started jujitsu. I'm quite enjoying that. I'm not very good at it. But I know we've spoken about it, Chris, in that every year now I try and challenge myself to learn something that I can't do. I enjoy, as I said to you, the process of learning a thing, because I find it quite rewarding. You know, you put work in, you get better, it makes you turn up again, and you do the same thing until you know, you keep getting better. And as long as I enjoy it, I'm happy. I'm never going to be, I'm never going to compete in the worlds at jiu-jitsu. I can tell you that now. But I'm enjoying the process, even though I get manhandled by people half my size. It's still enjoyable to me. So I think, yeah, this year we will carry on with the dog training side of things and the competition. We decided to take a year off GB, just to spend more time on weekends and during the week with our son. He's at an age now where I don't feel like we've got too much longer of him actually wanting to do stuff with us. So we made the decision this year that the priority will be him, maybe doing a few more holidays and just not having that responsibility towards the team of doing everything that we need to be ready. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the summer. Really, it's just started for us. I think we're like 3 weekends in. yeah, I think this year now is going to be one to enjoy, and then maybe next year we saddle up and try again for the GB team.
That sounds exciting, and it really sounds smart, because agility isn't everything, but even though it's a big part of many people's lives, it's sometimes important to take a wider view and make some adjustments.
Yeah, for sure. It's I'm very privileged that my job is what it is. I love it. I love helping people. I love agility. The fact that I can be competitive and hopefully can be for, age isn't going to be a limiting factor. Hopefully, up to a point, of course. But perspective is important, and ultimately people get, and I don't like to say obsessed, because obsessed has a kind of negative connotations attached to it. But I don't think it's a bad word. It depends how you look at it. But there are other things that are important. And to me, family is one of those. So yeah, we got to have balance, right? It needs to be a bit of balance in everything.
At least strive for balance. It's not always easy to achieve, but it's worth striving for. Thank you so much, Kert, for taking the time. I really enjoy this personally. I hope the listeners, and I think the listeners will enjoy this as well. There are a lot of lessons from your journey, and I wish you the best luck on continuing your journey with jiu-jitsu and then hopefully coming back strong.
Next time I'll be a blue belt, maybe. Thank you for having me on, Chris. I appreciate it. Hopefully it was something there for people to maybe cling on to, maybe some ideas, give them some ideas on how they can look to move forward if that's something they want to, isn't it?
Perfect. Thanks, Kert. So I hope you enjoyed this week's podcast, this episode. I truly did. And if you want to learn more about the work that Kert does, you should go to Karma Fitness. You can find him on both Facebook, Instagram, and online. And look out for his online courses. There's a lot of people. He has a great community, and it's worth to take a look at, because investing in yourself is not just investing in yourself, it's investing in the team. So I highly recommend that. And if you haven't yet, I also recommend that you go to dogagility.com to sign up for the Daily Champion newsletter, where you will get a daily affirmation and a quote and a challenge to your mail inbox. It's a great way to start your day. It's a great way to sort of start to question things or think about things and work on your mental game. And it's a great beginning. It's a great place to start. So do that. And again, if you haven't subscribed, I know I'm talking too much about it, but that's what you're supposed to do. Because when you subscribe to a podcast, and if you like the podcast and you think that this is valuable and that this can help you build that growth mindset, then you will get notifications every time we put out a new episode. So do that. And yeah, that's basically it. Have a great day. Focus on getting better, and then you will see that eventually those efforts will reap in results in the ring. My name is Christoffer Endresen. I wish you a wonderful day.